Number 1. I'm sharing this experience literally from last night because A, it's creepy as hell, at least for me, and B, I want people to learn from my experience. This is a precautionary tale. I understand that this was my fault, but maybe if I can help one person by telling my story, it's worth it. I don't drink as a general rule, but once a month or so I'll go out with friends and binge. My friends and I had a great night at a bar in the city, and they left. I was chatting up a cute guy, so I decided to stay. I went back to his place. After we had finished our business, very unsatisfying for anyone interested, I'm ready to head home, so I call an Uber to pick me up. I don't know where I am. I know the city I'm in, but not my exact location. I order the Uber, but it's taking forever. Requesting. So I cancel it and try again. Pretty soon, a car pulls up. I drunkenly mumble something like, "Is this the Uber?" and hop in. Mistake. Ubers apparently are supposed to have some kind of marking on the vehicle. The guy pulls away and starts driving. We're chatting. I'm fumbling for a cigarette, and the next thing I notice is that we're headed on the highway, but in the opposite direction of where I thought we needed to drive, and we're going at a solid 90 miles per hour. Then I get a call from my Uber driver. He's there and I'm not, because I'm in a car with a fucking nutsack. I start texting my friend, frantically counting off mile markers for her. Then I realize that's going to do nothing, because she's probably drunk too. So I call 911, but I realize this guy is crazy. He's refusing to let me out of the car, so I've got to do it on the sly. And it's been 40 minutes. I'm terrified. I don't know where I am. I don't know who this is. And we're driving at over 100 miles per hour, weaving in and out of traffic. This guy is trying to get me to hang up the phone call.
Yo, get off the phone. The fuck are you calling? Better not be a snitch.
And also smoking pot. So I don't want to do anything that might provoke a violent reaction from him. I just don't know the guy. I start chatting to the 911 dispatcher, as if it's my friend, praying that they will catch on. "Hey girl, it's me. Yeah, I'm with someone right now. We're on the highway." "No, sweetie, it's not my Uber. I thought it was, but it's not. It's a shame you can't come and meet me and bring friends." Thanks sweet baby Jesus, the operator catches on. He gets me to stay on the phone while he sends cops, and we develop a code. If I see cops, I'm supposed to casually put my hand out of the window, which looks semi-normal because I'm smoking a cigarette anyway. We pull into some random little housing complex, and he pulls out some powder and forms 2 lines. I now have confirmation that this man does drugs and could be really high on something, which means he's probably emotionally volatile. I relay this to the operator, in code. "Oh girl, I wish you were here right now. This guy just busted out the coke. You'd love it. He's taking a really big bump. Man, after my own heart." Pretty soon, I can see the lights from the cop cars, so I start waving my hand out the window. At this point, I don't care if he's onto me or not. I don't know if he has a weapon, but I slump down in my seat just in case things get hot. The cops surround us, get him out of the car, and then, when it's safe, they extricate me as well. They whisk me to the hospital for a drug test and evaluation, and that is where my story ends. On my way to the hospital, as I'm explaining all this to the officer, I find out that out of the guy's 40-ish years on this earth, he's been in federal prison for 30 of them, for violent offenses. I want people to learn from my mistakes, and if nothing else, call 911 and stay on the line. Thank you. Number 2. I've had a lot of bad luck in my life when it comes to violent encounters with the wrong sort of people, though unfortunately this wasn't the first incident and far from the last. Graduating from a relatively prestigious high school with an emphasis in engineering, I decided without much thought to pursue a degree in engineering in college. In the end, I gained an admission to Virginia Tech and headed off to Southwest Virginia in the August of 2006. Long story short, it was a big and somewhat difficult adjustment, and it wasn't going quite as well as I would have liked. As an interesting aside, on the very first day of classes, in fact in my very first college class ever, one of the school staff stuck their heads in the dorm and told us that class was being cancelled for the day, and that we should head back to our dorms and stay there because there may have been a shooter on campus. Wait, what? It turns out that there had been an inmate at the local hospital in town, and he had killed a security guard in order to escape, and the authorities believed that he might head to campus to blend in with the thousands of students. I remember he was caught, but I don't think he was on the campus. I honestly can't remember that part, but it was kind of a weird way to start college. No huge deal though, right? Well, more like a very small dress rehearsal for what was about to come. Anyway, fast forward to 8 months later, mid-April. I woke up Monday morning in my dorm room in Cochrane Hall at about 7:30, if memory serves. Looking out of my window to the northeast, I could see across the courtyard to West Ambler Johnston, and down to the courtyard below was an ambulance. Now, you have to understand, Virginia Tech is a huge school. When I went there in 2006-07, there was something like 26,000 students in attendance. Because the school is located in a rural area, they provided basic medical services and EMS on campus. With this many kids running around, getting drunk, forgetting to take meds, taking too many medications, having epilepsy, diabetic attacks, etc., it wasn't super uncommon to see an ambulance on campus, so I didn't think much of it. I did check my campus email to make sure everything was okay, and in the absence of any warnings about anything, I pulled some clothes on and shoes and shuffled over to D2, a huge buffet-style dining hall, to get some food before French class at 9. Having accomplished this, I proceeded across campus to Holden Hall, which is basically the east wing of a bigger building. The best wing of the building is called Norris Hall. French class had started, and I think we were talking about Sarkozy and the upcoming French elections, when we started hearing the weird sounds of the PA system outside. The week before had included some minor disruptions to our schedule in the form of prank bomb scares, and we figured some idiot was at it again. No big deal. Boy, were we wrong. About 5 minutes later, we see some cop cars pull up outside, and about a minute after that, we see more cop cars pull up along with a big van, and out of the van come several men dressed in full black body armor with what looked like M16s. So, maybe not a bump scare anymore. At this point, our instructor was having some trouble keeping us focused on our lesson anymore, and sort of allowed us to watch what was going on, and someone said that we should turn the TV on and see if there was any information on the news. The information wasn't totally clear from the TV, but it seemed that someone had shot 8 people on campus, and I remember us talking and saying that there was no way that this was that many people. At this point, I decided that I should call my mother. I whipped out my phone, not caring that we were still in class, and dialed my mum. Thankfully, she answered. "Hey mum, are you watching the news right now?" "No, I'm at work." "I know, but you should probably turn it on because I just wanted to let you know that I'm okay before the phone stopped working." I recalled from after 9/11 that everyone and their mother was trying to call loved ones that day, so the cell grid was basically overloaded and most calls wouldn't go through, and I assumed that the same thing was going to happen here, even if nothing had actually happened. The grid did eventually go down later. I said goodbye and also called my friend Ali to make sure that she was okay, especially since she lived on the same building that I'd seen the ambulance earlier. She was fine, and I went back to watching the news. It came to light at this point that there had apparently been more than one shooting at the school, at Ali's building, West AJ, and now at Norris Hall, which we'd already figured out on our own. Looking out of the window at the ever-growing sea of cop cars below us on Drillfield Drive and on the field itself, we suddenly hear outside the windows from the other end of the building. We all looked at each other, and suddenly this was way more serious. This was real. People were being shot outside our building, and at this point we decide that maybe we should be a little more proactive about our safety. We turn the lights off, turn the TV off, and start rearranging the furniture in the room to block the door. Though immediately the makeshift barricade probably wouldn't have stopped a really determined person from getting inside, since the door had frosted glass on its upper half instead of being solid. We figured that this was better than nothing, and sat down on the floor near the front of the door, talking to each other in hushed tones. After about 15 minutes, we hear footsteps outside the room. Everyone freezes, and no one makes a sound. I remember looking up from the floor towards the door, wondering if this was it. Is this how I die? A few seconds later, we hear a tap on the door and a deep voice. "This is Deputy so-and-so. Stay where you are, leave your lights off and stay quiet. We'll be back for you as soon as we can." This was not a member of either the campus police or the Blacksburg police. But from looking out of the window, we already knew that there were cops there from everywhere within the driving distance. We all look around at each other in solemn silence. We'd all just been thinking the same thing before the deputy had spoken. Thankfully, he hadn't asked us to open the door, because I don't think anyone would have even gotten up from where they were sitting. We stayed down and quiet for a couple more hours. I can't really remember what it was we talked about while I was there, since we were all so keyed up. It's been a long time waiting, and then we hear footsteps again outside the door. This time, we saw evidence of who the man was before he spoke. A gold badge pressed up against the frosted glass assured us that what we heard was legitimate. "This is Deputy so-and-so. It's time to go." We all quietly got up and grabbed our backpacks. A couple of guys in the class, myself included, started pulling the tables away from the door as quickly and as quietly as we could, and then we cracked the door. I think on some level, all of us expected that this was a trick. But when we opened the door, standing a few feet away was a sheriff's deputy in uniform, with his sidearm drawn and held at his side. He held his finger up to his lips, indicating that we should be quiet, and he dropped his voice to a whisper. "You're going to walk downstairs as quickly as you can. There are 2 more cops by the door outside. They know you're coming. Just walk straight outside and don't stop." He nodded at us, and we started making our way downstairs. He got on his radio and signaled, "Students coming." When we got to the midway landing, we could see the front door cracked and a cop peering in. Walking up to the door, he opened it wider to let us pass, and as he did, he looked straight at us and said quietly but very seriously after signaling on his radio, "Run." Walking out that door into the morning light, I was greeted by a sight I will never forget. I've never seen so many cop cars in one place in my entire life, and I honestly hope I never have cause to again. There were easily 200 or 300 Crown Vics and a smattering of additional vans, trucks, and command center vehicles crowding every inch of space, starting about 100 feet from that door. In front of those vehicles stood a phalanx of at least 40 officers, armed with M16s and even a couple with MP5s, directly in our path. As soon as we were outside, the several cops to the left and right of this formation waved at us in an unmistakable gesture of, "Move your ass." We ran off to the left of the cops with the big guns, over Drillfield Drive and onto the drill field itself, and didn't stop until we were almost to the other side. I read the news online after I got to my dorm. MSNBC had something at the bottom of an article that said something like, If you have any information about this, please contact us. Thinking little of it, I emailed them with my contact information, and within 10 minutes, my phone absolutely blew up. I was beset with interview requests and questions from at least 20 different people, and actually arranged to meet their news crew down at the inn that evening. The inn is the on-campus hotel. I ended up doing 2 national interviews, one on Scarborough Country, and another with Geraldo Rivera, who was kind of self-absorbed, but was cool enough to order us pizza and sit with us while we ate before the interview. The second was with my 2 friends who had agreed to accompany me down to the circus that the inn had become. I did a few more for some local radio stations and some print news before deciding that I had had quite enough for the day and went back to my dorm to get some sleep. I hadn't really been sold on the whole college experience up until that point, but strangely enough, if anything, the whole experience seemed to bring me and my friends closer together for the last month at school. Luckily for me, no one I knew was hurt beyond a friend of a friend breaking his leg badly from jumping out the window from Professor Liviu Librescu's classroom. Check this guy out, an engineering professor who survived the Holocaust, and as his final act, held that door of his classroom shut to give his students time to escape. He died at the scene, but was really a hero. The rest of the tragedy is part of the public record. I'm sad to say that I left Virginia Tech after that year for completely unrelated reasons and always missed it, but I still talk to my friends from that first year, and I miss both the place and their company. Virginia Tech seems to have had a horrible patch of bad luck starting in 2006 and lasting for a few years, also including a really gruesome beheading in a dining hall, an accidental death, and a suicide, a close call with carbon monoxide poisoning for the entire cheerleading team at the inn, all in the year following the big shooting. They also had a couple who were attending the school abducted and murdered a few years ago. But IIRC. It happened further north in the state, I think, near Charlottesville. Luckily, I never experienced any of that. I think I'd fulfilled my quota of random bad luck, at least for a while. Cho Seung-hoo. I'm really glad we never met, and also that we never will. Number 3. This just occurred this past November. A close friend and I were on a fall break from college and decided to go to an Odessa concert in downtown Chicago. We grew up in the suburbs, so going to Chicago to have some fun was common for us. Anyways, we had a great time at the concert and decided to Uber home, since we weren't close to the train station. My friend told me that Uber wasn't working for him at the time, so I called the Uber. But this was literally my first time ever calling one, and I accidentally called an Uber pool, not knowing what it was. My friend saw that and was like, it doesn't really matter. So the driver picks us up from right outside the concert venue. There were a lot of intoxicated people around us, as one could imagine post-Odessa show. But we were pretty sober, as all we did was smoke some weed, on which we were used to. We get in the car and everything is going normal, but we didn't notice the direction the driver was taking us, as we were wrapped up in talking about the show. Turns out, the driver was going to the south side of Chicago, on which we realized after some time by looking at maps. But our suburb was exactly the opposite direction of this lengthy drive south. We decided to attribute this to the fact that it was an Uber pool, and shrugged it off, until we picked up his next passenger. To be honest, this girl was scary. I don't like to judge people, but she scared us just by how she looked and how she talked. Once the girl got in, we asked the driver where we were going first, to which he stopped answering. Next thing I know, my phone lit up and said that the Uber trip was cancelled. And for this duration of the ride, Uber had no record of me being in the car. I asked the driver what the deal was, and he didn't answer. The girl and the driver 100% knew each other, as they were calling each other nicknames, The girl was being weird and seemed to be doing some hand signals to him or something. Then, we proceeded to drive further south to this neighborhood, the sketchiest neighborhood I've ever seen. I didn't realize neighborhoods like this even existed. Every house was completely wrecked, and most streetlights were out or flickering. Homeless people were living on sidewalks, and there were beat down warehouses and alleys. This was by far the scariest area that I've ever seen. No one who cared would hear a scream in this area. Once we started seeing all of this, our hearts dropped because the driver would still not respond to us. My friend then looked over to me and whispers, "We need to get the fuck out of here." To which I replied, "Dude, look where we are." And so we stayed in the car. The driver continued driving down this alley behind a warehouse where the streets ended and there were just fields beyond it. The driver is going down this alley at like 2 miles per hour, really slow, but just keeps going. The girl and Uber driver were completely discussing something serious, but we couldn't make it out since they were mostly signals. At that time, our hearts sank even more, and we literally both thought that we were going to be killed in this alley, or at best, someone was going to get in the car and rob us. He stopped, the doors unlocked, and I was in complete shock with a pale face when all of a sudden, my friend says, "Hey, I'm completely sober, and I'm about to fucking call 911. I'm assuming the driver was waiting around the concert to pick up wasted people to allow this to happen, but we were pretty sober. My friend was serious. He was about to call 911. He had dialed 911 on his phone, and the Uber driver looks back at us in shock after he sees 911 dialed and my friend's finger about to push call. He looks at the girl, and the girl is in shock too. She nods her head no and says, "What the fuck are you doing, Ray?" talking to the driver, and then she gets out. The driver then drives out of the neighborhood and onto the highway towards our suburb. All of a sudden, my Uber app gave a notification saying that we were on a ride. All of a sudden, the driver starts talking to us again, but he wasn't giving any answers, just saying that he's driving us home. We were asking what the fuck just happened, and he wouldn't answer stuff like that. He would answer about where we're going, but nothing about what just happened. We got home safely and reported the Uber driver for this ride, because he was obviously messed up and they were up to something bad. And we suspect that the Uber driver was waiting around for wasted people to call a pool so he could get away with this, but realized we were too big of a risk when it came time to do what they were planning to do. We've accepted that we were part of a mugging scheme, and got lucky we decided not to get drunk at the concert. We had anxiety for weeks after this, but we now know just how sketchy areas can be and how to be more safe in Chicago. Just don't call an Uber pool outside of a concert or a bar. It's so weird to me that people live this sketchy life and do things like this to people. But it was eye-opening. Hey guys, it's the Grim Reader here. Long time no see. Long time no hear, I guess. You might be wondering, where have you been, Grim Reader? Well, there's a very simple answer to that question. I've been very, very busy with just life. University has been taking so much time. Lots of studying, family things. So I just didn't really have much time. But now that it's the summer holidays, I've got plenty of time, and I can upload a lot more now. So I hope you haven't been disappointed with my absence. I tried several times, but I just didn't have a quiet place to upload, or enough time, or just at one point I didn't even have a mic. So it took a while, but now that I have plenty of time and a quiet place, I'll be uploading pretty much every day for the next month at least. And then after that, it should be at like 2 or 3 times a week. So watch out for those videos. And yeah, I'm back. I'm back. It's been a while. I miss uploading videos. Yeah, I missed making these those weird noises in the outros and the intros. But yeah, I'm back. I hope you guys haven't gone away. But yeah, here I am. I thought I'd explain where I've been. It's only fair that I do so, since so many of you have been messaging me constantly, leaving comments, messaging me on Instagram, and asking me where I've been. Well, I've just been around, really. I've just been really busy. But here I am. I hope you guys will like the videos. I hope you will enjoy these videos once again. So sorry about my absence, but I'm back.